Okay, at about 9 o'clock this morning, deputies received a call from Susan DiFabio, and her last name is Difabbio. She's a white female with a date of birth of July 18th, 1953, and she lives at 5170 80th Way North, which is directly to the north behind me and a little bit to the west. Susan DiFabio called deputies because her son, Jeffrey Falsey, F-A-L-S-E-Y, 25-year-old white male. His date of birth is 9/11/1992. She had an argument with him this morning because he wanted her to go get donuts. She wouldn't go get donuts, and he became upset about that. And there's a history between them of domestic arguments and not getting along. And Jeffrey was also not happy that his mother had Daniel, and I'll spell his last name, Kulwicki, K-U-L-W-I-C-K-I, living at the residence. And DiFabio described her relationship with Kulwicki as a fiancé. Kulwicki is also a registered sex offender, and that also upset Falsey that Kulwicki, as a registered sex offender, was living in this mobile home at that address on 80th Way. So they had a volatile relationship. What triggered it this morning was the fact that Falsey wanted his mom to go get donuts, and she wouldn't do that. So they started arguing. And because of the argument, DiFabio called the sheriff's office, asked deputies to respond out. As we were responding to the call, we became aware that he did have weapons in the home. No weapons had been used. There hadn't been any threats with the weapons, but we were aware of weapons being in the house. As deputies responded, they approached the trailer. And as they approached the trailer, DiFabio exited, and she was walking towards the deputies. At that point, two deputies walked up to the front door and knocked on the front door of the trailer, and somebody, and we assume at this point that it is Falsey, told the deputies to come on in. The deputies did not enter. They sensed something was wrong. They were concerned for their safety, and they did not go in, and they began to talk to whoever it was, and we believe that was Falsey, through the door. At that point, as they began to talk with Falsey, all of a sudden a significant number of gunshots rang out, and Falsey started shooting out the trailer at the deputies. And I'll fast forward just to tell you what we know is in the trailer right now is there was a 12-gauge shotgun, a Tech 9 semi-automatic, which is really a pistol, a 45 caliber handgun, and a .223 rifle with a bunch of ammunition. So as the deputies were taking the gunfire, they retreated. One went to the north and was pinned down behind a car where he was shot at. The other went to the south. He was pinned down behind a car, and behind the car he was at, there are 9 rounds in that car. Two other deputies arrived on the scene. One of those deputies who arrived on the scene was Deputy Michael Ficcicelli, and his last name is spelled F-I-C-O-C-E-L-L-I. Deputy Ficcicelli, as the shots rang out, was going back to his car to get his rifle out, and he was shot in the back side of his leg as he was trying to get the rifle out of his car. He is in good condition. He's at Bayfront Medical Center, and he's being treated there. It is not life-threatening, but Deputy Ficcicelli did take a gunshot wound into his leg. At that point, the 3 deputies and sergeant who were on the scene were pinned down by the gunfire, and there was a continual volley of gunfire by Falsey at the deputies. He has a video camera system in the trailer. He was watching everything they were doing, and as they were moving and trying to get a better place of cover, he continued to fire at them. There were at least, in a very minimum of 30 rounds that he fired from those semi-automatic weapons at the deputies. As we were able to secure the scene and the SWAT team arrived, we were able to establish communications with Falsey. At that point, we learned that Falsey had killed Kulwicki, and Kulwicki was dead inside the trailer. As a result of negotiations between our negotiators, SWAT team negotiators, and Falsey, he agreed to come out. And at about 10 after 11 this morning, he did come out, and he was taken into custody. No deputies returned fire, and he was taken into custody. There's no injuries to Falsey. Back in January of this year, Deputies did respond out here for a domestic at that time. Falsey was arrested and charged with domestic battery on his mother, Susan DeFabio, at that point. The guns were in the house at that point, but we had no cause or no reason to remove those firearms that are illegally owned. What we know is that he had been given those firearms by his father, who lives in St. Petersburg. He had a significant history of mental health issues, Falsey does. He's being treated by mental health professionals, and this is just an ongoing, unfortunately, common situation. We have somebody that has very significant mental health issues, a history of domestic violence, history of not getting along with his mother. He's been charged with domestic battery. He's out on bond. He's acquired a significant number of firearms, and he went off today over donuts, something as silly and as stupid as donuts. And then he was upset, of course, with the fact that his mother, DeFabio, had the victim here, the homicide victim, Kulwicki, who he had issues with because he's a sex offender. So when he shot Kulwicki, he shot him with a shotgun in the forehead. We went in there and he was deceased, obviously, and he took a shotgun round in the forehead. All the weapons are inside the trailer. So the investigation's ongoing at this point. Our homicide unit is here. We will be here for a while with forensics processing the crime scene, and that's what we know at the current time.
What was Deputy Ficocelli's first name?
This is Deputy Michael Ficocelli, Ficocelli. He's been with the Sheriff's Office for about 2 years, and he is 30 years old.
So
30.
Obviously the father knew that his son had some mental issues. Any idea how long he's been in possession of those firearms?
Okay, so hang on that for a second. The father, okay, who is not here, the father is not Kulwicki. The father, Kulwicki, right? Okay, so the father lives in St. Pete. The investigation's ongoing. We don't know what the father knows other than he had obtained those guns from his father. So beyond that, at this point, I don't know what the father knows or doesn't know, or he apparently is estranged from his father. Don't know when he got the guns, but the information we have from the mother, from DeFabio, is that's where he obtained them.
And how long the mother and son lived together in that trailer?
Well, it's been, probably for at least over a year. It's been for a considerable period of time. It's not recent that he moved in. Right.
A couple hours ago, was that the deputy that was in?
Probably, but I'm not sure who you saw, so
okay.
It depends.
But the deputy did leave this area.
He did. He did, yes.
Sheriff, can you set the scene for us back there? You said the deputy Ficocelli was trying to fire from his vehicle. Was he within sight, obviously, of the trailer?
Yeah, and because he was firing with long guns, with a .223 rifle, with a shotgun, is that some of those rounds were hit into vehicles about 50 yards away. And in addition to the citizens' cars, the residents' cars, the neighborhood cars, at least one sheriff's office cruiser also has several rounds on that. So what it appeared is that Falsey was inside. Deputies were at the door. He started firing at them. As they tactically retreated, he was firing at them and tracking them. So he was firing out the door, and as one of them went to the south, he started tracking them to the south and continued to fire, and he had a whole volley of these, and shot into the car that the deputies were standing behind for cover and concealment. Deputy Ficocelli was also tactically retreating and trying to get his rifle out of his car, and as he was trying to move to the car to get the rifle is when he was shot.
Does the suspect have any kind of military background or training?
Don't know anything about that. No idea. The only thing we know about him is what I told you, is that he's lived here for a while, serious, significant mental health issues, being treated, history of domestic violence, history of being volatile, long history of not getting along with his mom, and is a very problematic individual.
Has Kulwicki been there the whole time that he lived there?
Yeah, he's been here for a long time. Again, their fiance, he lives here. He had some disabilities, in and out of a wheelchair. And when he shot him in the living room area again. Went in there, he's face down on the living room floor with a very, very large shotgun blast to his head.
Sheriff, do we know the timing of when that individual was shot versus the 911 call coming in?
So, no, other than I can tell you is that at about 9 o'clock, a little after 9 o'clock is when we received the call, and probably somewhere around 10, a little after 10 o'clock is when he informed us on the phone that he had killed him. So when in there he killed him, because again, we had a series of gunshots, a lot of volley of gunfire over an extended period of time. Most of that, but obviously not all of it, was directed at the deputies. At least one shotgun round was directed at the victim. So, when in there he actually killed him, I don't know, but I can tell you that it's somewhere between a little after 9 o'clock and probably somewhere when he said he killed him, somewhere probably 10:15 range. And then we go in there a little after 11 and we find him deceased.
So I guess you got to feel a little fortunate that he, even though the argument started with his mom over the donuts, that she was able to get out when the deputies initially arrived.
Everybody's very fortunate here. We're lucky, we had a deputy shot. We're lucky we didn't have many shot or killed. Again, he had an arsenal. He had a Tech 9, a .223 rifle, a shotgun, a .45 handgun, and a ton of ammunition in there. And he discharged a lot of rounds, a lot of shell casings, and it's kind of a battle zone. And you see all these cars that are shot up, windows blasted out across the street. So to the west side, there's a house directly across the street, and he was firing at that house. There were 7 children in that house, and the resident said that she heard the rounds as they were going through the bushes in front of her house. So this could have been a much worse situation than what it is. It's a bad situation. It's terrible. We have 1 person dead, a deputy sheriff shot, but it could have been much worse. And the way he was armed, with the number of weapons he had, the ammunition capacity that he had, this could have been a much worse situation.
Can you tell us if you've spoken, Sheriff, to Deputy Fitzgerald and how's he doing?
I have, and he's at Bayfront, and again, he's in stable condition, good condition. He's going to be fine.
Can you go over again exactly how you were able to take the suspect into custody?
Well, we first thing we want to do in these situations, or what we did here, is to establish communication with him, and through good work being done by our negotiators, we were able to convince him that the right thing to do, the best thing in his interest, was to come out after he had again engaged in this extensive gunfire. One way or another, we were going to get this thing resolved, and it was in his best interest to come out. We're fortunate that he did, and it all worked out at that end of it. It worked out the way you want to see these things happen, with nobody else being hurt.
There was a bang around 11:15.
Right, so that was a distraction device. As we went in to clear the house and the SWAT team went in, that device that you heard is what's called a flashbang, or a distraction device, and that was when they did the entry into the house.
Sheriff, one more time about the intuition of the deputies not to enter when they said, come on in. It was the way he said it or something that just...
You got deputies that get a lot of training, they get a lot of experience with these things, and you listen to your gut, and when it doesn't feel right, you don't do it. And fortunately, they listened, because otherwise they would have been ambushed, no question about it, because he had nothing on his mind other than killing people and making carnage. And if the deputies had opened the door and walked in, they would have got blasted. And when they didn't come in, he immediately opened fire. And then as they tactically retreated, he tracked them and was firing at them as they were retreating. And as they were trying to hunker down and use that cover and that concealment, he was firing into that cover and concealment, firing into those cars. And, fortunately, the rounds went into the cars and the deputies weren't shot. But, their instincts, as I say, listen to your gut. They listened to their gut and their instincts, and thankfully they did, because otherwise, potentially would have been a much worse situation.
Did any of your personnel have to go door to door and tell people to stay in their homes or to evacuate them?
We did all of that with the neighborhood, and of course, we're concerned. We've done an extensive neighborhood search and neighborhood canvas after the fact to make sure there are no other victims and nobody else was injured, and we've done that and completed that, and there are no other victims. But there was some evacuation of the area in there, and there were a couple of other things that happened during this that were collateral, but we were able to get those people out and try and get people to stay safe. One of the things that is concerning, although there's many things concerning, are those 7 kids that were directly across the street, and that residence was taking some gunfire. So, all he was interested in was killing people, and the number of rounds that he fired and the way that he was engaging in those volleys of gunfire, it was clear what he wanted to do.
Can you estimate those rounds in the hundreds?
Well, I can't, it's really hard to tell, but I can tell you that, at a minimum, very minimum, and it's more than that, it's probably double or triple, but I'll say it was well over 30.
Can you go over the guns again? What he had in the
Sure.
house?
He had a Tech 9, a .223 rifle, a shotgun, and what looked like to me to be a .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun, and a lot of ammunition. It smelled like gunpowder in there. He was just blasting off all kinds of rounds inside that trailer. and a lot of gunfire.
And the mom's name one more time, can you spell it?
Sure. So the mom's name is Susan
Uh-huh.
DiFabio, Difabbio, white female, and her date of birth is 7/18/1953.
Can you give us Kowicki's DOB again, please?
Sure. Kolwicki, the deceased person, Daniel Kolwicki, is 1948. Okay. All right, thanks everybody.